He says, this is how you know somebody's a God person, a follower of Jesus, the way they love everybody around them. And anybody who's not loving the people around them doesn't know God. It's that simple. Truth tends to be illuminating. But I think for a lot of us, whether we want to admit it or not, whether we're even conscious of it or not, we have this model of the universe where we are at the center of everything and God and everyone else are kind of orbiting around us. And we use them when we need to get what we want. We bring them in from orbit and they can help us achieve our dreams and our needs. And then we send them back just to circle around us until we need them again. And there's a problem with it. It's not working the way we want it to. I think most of us would say like, yeah, my relationships aren't what I think they could be. God isn't working for me the way I think that he should be. And the reason is our model is broken. We live in the middle of a society that tells us life is found by focusing inwards and pretending everything revolves around you, but that doesn't work. And so if we're going to be in this next chapter who God made us to be individually and as a community, if we're going to do all the things I believe God has for Revision Church to do, we're going to need a new model. One where we discover that life is actually found by giving your life away. And that we experience life most fully in connection with God and his people. Because that's just how the universe is hardwired to operate. I mean, look around you. Everything is built on connection. Creeks flow into rivers, which flow into oceans. Planets revolve around the sun. These trees are breathing out what we're breathing in. All of creation whispers this same truth. Nothing thrives in isolation, especially human beings. And when we try to, when we act like everyone revolves around us, we end up feeling alone. And when it comes to faith, we end up feeling broken and dry because faith isn't meant to be a solo sport. You can't follow Jesus alone. And we can't try to do that in the next chapter of Revision because our vision, like the reason this church exists, is to help people meet Jesus and follow him fully. But here's the truth, and there's no getting around it. You cannot follow Jesus fully if you're trying to follow him alone. It just doesn't work like that because following Jesus is built on love, and love involves other people. And specifically, it's built on self-sacrificial love, right? This whole movement that we call the church started when Jesus stepped out of eternity into the human story and then ultimately walked straight toward a city where he knew he was going to be arrested and killed. And I think that story is so familiar that sometimes we forget how wild it is that he actually did that. Like, you wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that, especially because Jesus knew exactly what was coming for him. He'd grown up seeing like rotting corpses on Roman crosses on the side of the road. He had smelled crucifixion. When he was a little boy, Mary had covered his eyes as he was walking by so he didn't have to look at it. The Jews understood what crucifixion meant and they were terrified of it. It wasn't just a method of execution, it was a weapon of psychological torture that the Roman Empire used against oppressed people groups. And yet, Jesus walked straight to the cross for you and for me in love. Because doing that was how he could live out this fundamental part of who he was and who he was inviting all of his followers to be. He could not have been more clear about that. In John 13, he sat down with his disciples at the Last Supper. He's talking to all of them. And he said, "A new command I give you. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this people will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." And let's be real, I bet some of them were sitting there and that's not quite what they expected to hear. Like that would have been a little bit of a confusing line because you'd been like, well, I thought we were going to be known by what we believed. And you know what? You got to believe some stuff. It's important. But people can't see what you believe. And other disciples would have been like, Jesus, I kind of thought we were going to be known by what we do, by some of the miracles and all that jazz. And you know what? You got to do some stuff. It's important, but people can't see why you're doing it. And so Jesus said, the thing that's actually going to set you apart, the thing that's going to identify you, the thing that the world will take notice of is the way that you love one another, the way that you do community. And this morning, what I want to do is drop in on a moment about 55 years after Jesus said these words and take a look at John, the guy who wrote the book of John. And by now, John has seen a lot of things. He saw Jesus die and hope die with him. He saw Jesus rise from the dead and this unquenchable hope rise with him. He's seen violence all around him. Jerusalem sacked, the temple burned to the ground. He's seen violence from Tiberius and Nero and other emperors who hated the idea that anyone would be loyal to Jesus instead of Caesar. Peter is dead, arrested, taken to Rome, crucified upside down. Paul is dead, arrested, taken to Rome, beheaded. Thaddeus, Matthew, Philip, James, Bartholomew, dead, 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 dead. Every last one of his friends are dead, and violently so. John is the only one left. And he has a chance in this moment as he looks back at a lifetime of love and loss, of hope and heartbreak, to write something to the church. And he knows that his words are going to land heavier and count for more than the words of any other living human. And so as he wraps up this letter, I think it's interesting to see what John thought the church desperately needed to know. So if you got a Bible with you this morning, you can crack it open to 1 John chapter 4. Not John like the gospel, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, but 1 John. It's way in the back toward Revelation. If you don't have one, you might be able to see it on the screen. You might not. I don't know. I can't see it from over there. If you need a Bible, please tell us after the service. We'd love to send you home with one. We don't have them as readily available here at the park as we usually do, but we've given over 1,000 Bibles away in the last 10 years in this chapter of revision. We love giving them away. Let me know. I'd love to get you a Bible. But 1 John chapter 4, verse 7, John's kind of wrapping up his thoughts, and he's like, man, if I have one last thing to say to a world full of believers who are being persecuted by an empire desperately trying to kill off this faith, who are living through this difficult cultural and personal moment, what can I say? He says, dear friends. And this is actually wordplay in Greek. The word that we translate dear friends is agapeto. It means loved ones. And so John literally says, loved ones, let us love one another, for love comes from God. And I think if I was listening to this in the first century, right? Like if I got this letter, 1 John, I didn't know it was 1 John because he hadn't written 2nd and 3rd John yet. I would just called it John. But if I got this letter from him and he said, let us love one another, this is my main message to the church, I'd have felt like, really though? Still? John, you're still clinging to this old idea from Jesus that love is how we're going to navigate things forward. Is it really working? How has love worked out for you and the fellas? In case you don't remember, they're all dead. And you should be dead. They tried to boil you in a cauldron of oil. Apparently you have magic, unboilable skin. I don't even know why you're alive. But is love working in this whole church thing you built? How's that going for you? You got any buildings yet? Are you still setting up and tearing down in caves every Sunday, meeting at night so that you don't get executed? Is love really the way forward? And maybe love was the way forward at one point. But Jesus has now been dead for longer than he was ever alive, and times change, and methods that worked way back in the day don't work anymore. You sure love wasn't just one of his parables where he was getting at something different? Is there maybe another key to this whole Christian community thing? John? Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God. Nope, says John, there is no other way forward. This is the way that looks like Jesus. Love is the only way we got where we are, and it's the only way we will ever get where we're going. John doubles down on Jesus' words, right? He says, this is how you know somebody's a God person, a follower of Jesus, the way they love everybody around them. And anybody who's not loving the people around them doesn't know God. It's that simple.